This is a chicken Freekeh soup, and I think it's one of the best soups in the Middle East. But before we get into it, what is Freekeh, and why do people think it's a superfood? Freekeh has been eaten in the Middle East since before the 13th century. It is durum wheat that is harvested while it's still young and green. Farmers harvest and set fire to freshly grown durum wheat, which results in these immature durum grains known as Freekeh. They end up with a delicious smoky flavour from the burning process, and because they haven't matured, they contain a relatively high amount of nutrients versus most other grains. Does that make them a superfood though? Well, I personally don't think there's such a thing as a superfood, but I will say that Freekeh is a fantastic ingredient to cook with. It's high in fibre and it has a satisfying chewy texture when cooked. We've made whole chicken stuffed with Freekeh before on the channel, so today we're going to make a simpler dish. This chicken and Freekeh soup has a smoky flavour, and compared to regular chicken soup, I'll drink this all winter long. Let's start by preparing the Freekeh grains. Because of the way it's harvested, there's a chance that you end up with little stones or sand in your bag of Freekeh, and you definitely don't want to eat those. So the first thing you need to do when working with Freekeh is pick through it with your hands. Also pick out any grains that look particularly burnt or bad looking. After removing those, place the Freekeh in a large bowl and give it a thorough wash to get off any burnt residue. Rub the grains a little and some Freekeh should float to the top. You should use a strainer to skim off anything that's floating. Here's all the nasties that I took out from mine, and as you can see, the water is pretty dirty. Continue washing it and changing the water until it runs completely dry. If you skip this step, I can't guarantee that you'll enjoy the Freekeh, and it will make your soup really cloudy. After washing thoroughly, my Freekeh is perfectly clean. We're now going to leave it to soak for about 30 minutes, which will speed up the cooking process. In the meantime, we can start with our chicken stock, and we'll do this the traditional Palestinian way. Start off by taking 2 onions and chopping them into quarters. I've also got a whole chicken which I've removed the backbone from and broken down into 6 pieces. If you wanted to, you can make this with lamb, or for a vegan version, some shiitake mushrooms. Start off by adding olive oil to a large stock pot over medium heat. If you have some Greek mastic, add a few pieces in to give a subtle flavour to the soup. Once the mastic has melted, add the chicken pieces to the pot skin side down. Sear these until they turn a nice golden colour. When they look like this, flip them over and sear them until browned on this side as well. Once you're happy, you can start adding in some whole spices for seasoning. Start off with a stick of cinnamon, a few bay leaves, some cracked green cardamom pods and some whole black peppercorns. Mix them with the chicken to give them a brief toasting, then add in your chopped onions and follow the top with some salt. There's also supposed to be whole garlic cloves which I forgot to add. Now just pour over a load of water until the chicken is covered and turn the heat up to high. Once the soup comes to a light simmer, there should be a load of foamy scum floating to the surface. This stuff is fat and denatured proteins from the chicken, and to give us a clearer soup, we need to skim off as much as we can. Turn the heat down a little so it doesn't mix in, and get the soup as clear as possible. Once you've removed it, let the soup simmer on medium heat for about 30 to 40 minutes. When that time is up, the chicken will be perfectly cooked, and we'll have a nice golden chicken stock that we can turn into our soup. Use a strainer to pull out the onions and spices, then fish out the chicken and set it aside. When your chicken has cooled, get rid of the ugly looking skins and then break up the meat into bite-sized chunks. You'll end up with a pile of light and dark meat like this, which will be perfect for the Freekeh. At this point, the Freekeh grains should have soaked up the water and they'll be quite a bit larger in size. All you need to do is drain them off. To cook them, start by adding some olive oil to a pot over medium heat. Once the oil has heated, add in some small diced onion and saute that in the oil for a few minutes. When the onions have softened and are just starting to brown, add in the drained Freekeh. Follow the top with some ground cardamom, salt and black pepper, then mix that in until well combined. You should then saute the Freekeh for a few minutes until the aroma of the spices becomes really fragrant. When that happens, set a strainer over your pot and pour in enough of the chicken stock to cover the Freekeh. Turn the heat up to high and cook this just like pasta for about 20 minutes. When the time is up, the Freekeh should have a slightly chewy texture. It shouldn't be difficult to eat, but expect it to be bouncier and chewier than rice. If not, cook it for another 5 minutes, and when you feel it's ready, you can put the soup together. Add in the bite-sized pieces of chicken, then pour over the remaining stock so you have plenty of soup. Let this heat up until it comes to a full boil, and then you're ready to serve. You should have a nice ratio of Freekeh to chicken and soup, and when plated up it should look like this. It might look just like a regular chicken soup, but the texture and flavour of the Freekeh really set this apart from any other. I get that soup isn't super interesting, but I think this one might be able to change your mind. Now, if you're interested in other soups to keep you warm in the winter, check out this video next.